welcome to Florida Focus, a college football podcast. My name is Brandon, and I'm a lifetime Florida State Seminole fan.
And I am Chris, and I am a big Gator fan.
All right, and we are put aside our differences as rivals to bring you the fantastic world of college football throughout the Sunshine State. Today, we're joined by a special guest, Chris, and this is someone that can really give us a perspective of what it's like to be a season ticket holder at Florida State.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about our guest and see what she has to say. Being a Florida State fan, it's nice to hear someone other than you talk about the Seminoles.
Yeah, I understand. So we want to welcome you, Lynn. Welcome to the show. Thanks for being on with us today.
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm looking forward to it.
Excellent. So the reason we want to bring on Lynn, she's been a fan of the show, a friend of ours for many, many years, and she's now been a season ticket holder for Florida State. This will be her 6th season. So we wanted to get her on and get some perspective on what it's like to tailgate in Tallahassee, to go in and have an in-game experience. And what better time than with about a couple weeks out for the season starting, right, Chris?
Oh, yeah. And for 6 years, she went through the ups and then currently the downs. So for you to stick with it, it's impressive.
Oh, I do what I can. And honestly, I learned from my dad, and I'll get into that a little bit later, so I won't spoil it for you.
Okay.
Okay, but you'll tease it. I like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I like it.
All right. So, Lynn, first question. Lifelong Florida State fan, how did you become a fan of the Seminoles?
So, a little bit of background here. I come from a divided household. My dad is a Seminole fan. My mom is a Gator. I am a third-generation Florida State graduate, and had I gone to UF, I would have been a fourth-generation Gator. My great-great-grandfather was actually a leatherhead for the Gators, surprisingly enough. But in all of that to say, my dad was definitely a bigger fan of the sports than my mom was. So I grew up every Saturday in the fall going over to friends' houses, to barbecue, and they'd have the game on, and so we'd sit there, and of course it's always the Florida State game. And then when I got a little bit older, my dad started bringing me to games, and somewhere in the depths of my photo archives, I actually have a photo from walking around Doak Campbell Stadium before the Unconquered statue was built. So it goes back to childhood and just what we did on the weekends in the fall.
Wow, great insight there.
Yeah.
Cool. Very cool. When, what year was the statue put up? You guys remember?
I want to say mid-2000s, Chris. I'm going to just off the top of my head
Okay.
guess around like 03 to 05-ish, somewhere around there.
If I remember correctly, it was 2002, and the photo I have, I believe, was from 2000.
Okay, so right before.
Yeah.
Very cool. Very awesome. So you had some Gator family members.
Yes.
But you were swayed to the dark side. Okay, cool. Good to hear. So there's hope. All I hear is there's hope for you.
Yes.
That's what I'm hearing. Okay, cool. So if you could tell us about the game day experience in Tallahassee, and what would you see there that you don't think you're going to see at any other pre-game atmosphere at any other stadium?
So I think it's really cool how the athletics department and the boosters have really set up game day for Doak Campbell Stadium. It truly is an experience. From the second you park your car and get on campus, there are tailgates everywhere. If you're walking around and you're curious to know, what the score of the noon game is, there are thousands of TVs in the parking lots for you to just go, oh, hey, who's playing? What's the score? They work with the marching chiefs. 2 hours before kickoff, you can go to Dick Hauser Stadium, which is our baseball field right next to Doak, and you can watch the marching chiefs do skull session, which is essentially their warm-up. Each instrument does their own little show, and then you've got the full band warm-up, and then you watch them march into the stadium as they make their way to their section. you've got, well, now we have a DJ. That's one of the new improvements. So we've got a DJ in the stadium to help you during, the warm up on the field.
Right.
We've got Osceola and Renegade, and you can actually walk by the locker room area where Osceola and Renegade are stationed, and you can get photos with Renegade prior to the games. Of course, there's like a barrier between you, but it's still pretty cool. So the kids really like to go see that if you're seated. I believe that's the north end zone. And then, of course, just, you've got the Chiefs who start you off on the field right before kickoff that leads to Osceola and Renegade planting the spear, midfield. You've got fireworks now. It's truly captivating from the moment you step on campus.
So it sounds like it's a spectacle.
Oh, it is.
Yeah, that's really cool that they're incorporating many aspects of it, and I like how the mascots are accessible.
Right.
Other than a barrier, obviously, we're not gonna have a kid walk up to a horse. But,
Right.
I see a bunch of lawsuits right there, but it's really cool that they can do that. And hey, if you're a 8-year-old kid and maybe you're not gonna care about the spread option, but hey, I'll go and because I like the horse or I like the band, and kind of get you into the football stadium or the game that way. It's really cool. It's really cool that they do that for you guys.
I mean, it's so much of an experience. When we played Miami in the Orange Bowl a couple of years ago, Jim Harbaugh was excited to hear that we were allowed to bring Osceola and Renegade. And he was like, if there's one thing I expect, it's to see them. And I'm loosely quoting, I'm pretty sure he did care. But I'm pretty sure he even stated, I don't even care if we win. So...
Right.
He was excited to see it, and that wasn't even a home game, so...
Right. Now, so both you guys can help me with this. I think you might have told me this before, Brandon, but what are the traditions as far as Osceola and the spear, like standing up, throwing the spear, getting off the horse, and throwing the spear? Like, does it have to do with like who they're playing against?
I'll answer it the best I can, and I'll let Lynn chime in. It can vary. A lot of times, if usually once a season, somebody from the Seminole tribe will get to plant it as an honor. If sometimes Osceola is an animal, can't control it. If he's not cooperating, maybe it's time to just throw the spear and kind of get off the field before it gets too spooked. Mm-hmm. Very rare occasions, you will see Osceola go out to midfield, and then they'll hand the spear off to somebody else. One of my best memories of all time was in 2009. It was announced Mickey Andrews was going to retire, and instead of Osceola Renegade doing the spear plant, Mickey Andrews did it instead.
Okay.
So, occasions like that, they may need to switch it up. Lynn, any insight on that?
It also has to do with any special honors that they might be giving out. So Burt Reynolds came, I want to say about 5 years ago, and he played football for Florida State. He was a really big booster, would often watch games from Bobby's office when Bobby was coaching. And so when he came, they had him plant the spear. So kind of like Brandon said, it's special honors throughout the course of the year. But also those big games, typically they'll bring Osceola and Renegade out and then take Renegade off the field before the spear's planted for Clemson, Florida, and Miami games, just because the longer they're on the field, the rowdier the crowd gets from both sides of the ball. So it's all about protecting the rider. A really good example of having noise issues, again, the Orange Bowl against Michigan, the crowd and being in the stadium that he wasn't used to, he got spooked right before kickoff, and I can't remember if I was at the game, so I don't know if it was televised or not, but he threw Osceola off really early into the game experience, and they escorted them off the field quickly. And I think they brought Osceola out a little bit later by himself, but the crowd, the horses themselves go through several years of training before they are full-blown renegade to get used to the amount of crowd, the noise, the distractions that they're going to, face over the coming years.
Okay. Yeah, it's, I didn't realize that was a factor. It makes sense, but I didn't realize it was a factor. I have flashes of Bevo and Uga recently when he went after him. Yeah. We don't know what you're gonna do when you get animals in outside their normal environment and people yelling at them.
Right.
Interesting stuff.
All right. Yeah, great question. Thank you. We got to dive into that tradition really hard. Thanks, Chris. Lynn, what inspired you to become a ticket holder at Florida State year after year? What inspired you to keep coming back?
Just going to college. It's part of, we get tickets as students as part of our tuition fees. Larger games, there's a lottery, obviously, because more people want to go to the Floridas, the Miamis, the Clemsons. But going every week and then staying in Tallahassee as, a young professional, I wanted to keep doing that simply because it wasn't something I got to experience a lot when I was younger because I wasn't from here. We weren't going to travel to every game every weekend, and just the culture, the atmosphere, it's truly something to watch the game from the stands at Doak Campbell Stadium.
How does that compare to any other stadiums? Have you been to other stadiums and other games, and any other stadiums stick out? And how does a game at Doak compare to those? Like, have you been to the Swamp? Have you been to the game? I know your family has some Gators in it.
I have been to 2 games at the Swamp, and I've been to multiple games at the Swamp. I've been to Clemson 3 times. I've been to Maryland when they were part of the ACC. I've been to Georgia Tech, and then I've been to a small handful of bowl games. I went to Bobby's last game at the Gator Bowl. As mentioned previously, I've been to the Orange Bowl as well. In terms of the stadium, I think it's an intimidation factor because it's a bowl. It's one of the largest stadiums that we have in the South, I want to say, and I could be wrong, so somebody correct me on that if I am. But the noise that just stays trapped inside Doak Campbell Stadium, the lower you are to the field, the crazier it gets. And there are a lot of people who in, post-game interviews have said, I was not prepared to play on the field. And I think that's what it boils down to, especially when you've got, 83,000 people doing the war chant in your ear, trying to, block whatever plays come in. I think it's completely different than if you are, on opposing team's turf. I was not a fan of the Swamp. I'm so sorry, Chris. Both times I went, I was in the nosebleeds, and I couldn't even see the end zone that I was seated above. And so the fact that I couldn't see the whole field kind of drove me crazy, especially for some of those bigger plays when, that's the end zone the Noles are coming to. Clemson, if I lived in South Carolina as a Seminole fan, I would go up there to watch the team play. I would go to watch Clemson play because that Death Valley is unlike anything else. It's a concrete stadium, and the entire stadium starts swaying with the movement of the crowd. It's just crazy. But honestly, some of the other teams, Georgia Tech was not a fan of the stadium. I also had a bad experience with that game because we lost in the last 35 seconds because we fumbled in the end zone. But the fans of all of the games that I've gone to that have not been at Doak, the Georgia Tech fans were probably some of the nicest I've ever encountered. Like, we lost that game in a horrible fashion, and we're walking out of the stadium, and their greeters were by the fence, and they were like, hope you have a safe trip back to Tallahassee or wherever you're from. Like, enjoy your time in Atlanta. And I was like, if we were anywhere else, you would just be like gloating in our faces right now.
Yeah.
They were truly Southern and hospitable, and that was pretty awesome.
Wow. And, I think they're just happy to win. So
Right.
they're just kind of,
Yeah.
This is a cool feeling.
Yeah. So I was actually with Lynn on most of those trips. I think to further your thought, Lynn, on the capacities, I want to say that Florida State was the biggest stadium in the ACC until they did recent renovations, which reduced the seat capacity. So now Death Valley, I believe, has the most. And I know for a fact that Ben Hill Griffin's bigger, but I don't know by how much.
Well, then I'll take the ACC credit.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
We got knocked down to, I think, 81,000 and some odd seats with the recent renovations.
I think Ben Hill is like around 92,000. Cool, thank you for that.
But have you ever driven by Ohio Stadium? Because that was intimidating, and all I did was drive by it.
No, I have not.
For
a horseshoe.
Yeah.
Horseshoe.
For work purposes, I have two of the largest stadiums in my repertoire as clients, which is the University of Michigan and Ohio State, and simply because I want to go inside the stadiums. Like I will eventually make my way up there for a Saturday game.
Right. One of the coolest stadiums I went to was Harvard's stadium, and it's like this old Coliseum.
Wow.
Like with it's really cool. It's small. It's a glorified high school or any high school in Texas, but
So UCF Stadium, got it.
Yeah. But it was like you're in Rome, just the way it was set up, and I don't know how to describe it other than like it was just a perfect like curve around it, almost like a horseshoe.
Wow.
That was really cool, although it was really small. And I've been to Alabama's, and that thing is massive.
Wow.
Just massive. It was a roommate at the time, it was an Alabama fan, and we went to Saban's first A-Day, their spring game, and it was packed, 100,000 for a spring game.
Jeez.
It was nuts. Yeah, it was nuts.
Wow.
That was impressive. I was very impressed with that stadium.
Lynn, what home games are you looking forward to most in this season, the 2019 year?
I was thinking about that earlier. There are three of them in particular that I'm really excited for. NC State, simply because we never know what we're going to get with that team each year. It's not quite a rivalry by any means, but the years that we're down seem to be the years that we do best against NC State. The years that we're up are the years where we tend to do the worst against NC State.
Amen.
So that's a game that I'm really starting to look forward to more and more each year, because it's a coin flip every year, especially when we're just a mediocre team. So this year it could honestly go either way. So I'm excited to see what ends up happening there. The next game is Syracuse, because they've slowly been on the rise, not only as a team, but in the ACC, beating Clemson a couple of years ago, having beat us, recently. I'm excited to see how they play down here. I do know that we have the heat and humidity in our favor when it comes to playing the Orange, but it's going to be a good game. I just have a feeling about that. And then last but not least is Miami. When it comes to the rivalries that Florida State has in the state of Florida, honestly, I would much rather play the Gators than Miami every year, because the fans are so much nicer. You're welcome, Chris.
All right.
Yeah.
But you're just saying that because I'm right here. I understand.
No, I'm not. I've never seen Florida fans throw trash on the field in protest. So,
yeah, it's true.
Having gone to multiple Miami games and multiple Florida games, honestly, I've personally always felt like I was more likely to get into a fight with opposing fans at a Miami game. So the feeling is on the field, it's off the field, it's crazy. I would also like to put a disclaimer in here now. I've never gotten into a physical altercation at any sporting event or in life in general. But Miami could go anyway, especially after last season's difficult loss, and the fact that they've got Manny Diaz coming in as a first-year head coach down there. It'll be interesting to see what he brings to the table.
The real question is, who are you guys rooting for in week 0?
Florida.
Referees.
I was gonna say, I was hoping someone would say the ref. Florida by a point.
Yeah, that's a weird one. It's, a bunch of orange. It's in the middle of a state. You guys don't play each other every year. It feels odd, and they're gonna say things like, "Oh, there's gonna be a real state of Florida champion." Okay, yeah, sure, I guess. But
I made a deal with my mom at a young age. I would never root against Florida unless they were playing Florida State.
Okay, that's fair enough. Fair enough. I've had this dilemma once in the national championship game, Tennessee and Florida State. Man, oh man, I hated that game. I liked it. I hated it.
You're one versus two hated teams. I can't imagine the turmoil in that one.
Yeah, goodness gracious, it was not fun. It was not fun.
All right, Chris, I know you had a couple more questions for Lynn. Go ahead.
Yeah, what is your outlook for this season? What are your expectations? How do you see the season playing out for the Seminoles?
So I kind of hinted at this, teased it, as you said. So my dad, when he was at Florida State, his last year of college was Bobby's first season. And that was the year that Bobby went like 1-10 or 0-11, whatever it was. It was losing. It was horrible. Everybody was like, did we really just, hire this guy from West Virginia? What's this team going to look like moving forward? And now, Brandon's going to laugh at what I'm about to say. My last year of college was when Jimbo came in, and it wasn't as bad of a, first season for the new head coach, but I try to forget, with the exception of the national title, the Jimbo days. I'm not a fan of him after what he did. That's a whole nother story. All of that to say, I view Taggart as my Bobby Bowden analogy when it comes to my dad and I. So when he came in, his record has always been his first year on a team, with the exception of Oregon. It's always been a losing season, but he's turned the team around. And that's what Bobby did. So this year, I'm expecting us to go at least 6-6. Would I like to see more wins? Of course, who doesn't? But a winning season, even if it's just 500, is good in my eyes. It gets us bowl eligible again, so we can restart all of the streaks that we just lost. You've got to tear yourself down, build yourself back up. Getting further buy-in from our younger guys and our older guys into Taggart and the Gulf Coast offense. Growth in the O-line. We've been struggling with O-line since probably I was in school, and I graduated 8 years ago. So I really want to see some more growth there. I think some of our recruiting is going to push us in the right direction there, because we're getting younger guys to build up that line. So that'll hopefully build for the next 3-4 years, so that we can get good there again. And then just some solid quarterback play. I know that we've got a lot of options right now, especially with Blackman having been a leader in the past. Whether he ends up being our starter or not, I think that that's good there. But I really want to see some more consistency and development in the quarterback spot. Going back to I really hate the Jimbo days. Jimbo is known for being a quarterback coach, but after Jameis, he didn't do a lot of development for our quarterbacks. So I really want to see more development, more solid play from the quarterbacks that we have. And then just based on how everything ends up unfolding, I want to see a more clear plan going into 2020. Because I think that this is going to be a good season for us. I think specifically the fans are going to see more of what Taggart has proven he's done in the past with his other programs. And it's going to be a full-blown development, back to basics. This is who we are. This is where we're going. It's going to be a much clearer picture than what we got in the 2018 season.
All right, yeah. I can't fathom them going another season without making a bowl. I can't see that. I don't see that. So I think at least 6-6 is accurate, if not a little bit more. And as a Gator fan, I understand how you feel with Jimbo, because we feel the same way with Urban. We are grateful for what he did, but man, did he leave us in shambles. He's kind of a little bit shady as the years go on.
Right.
You realize this is not who we thought he was. But he did win us something, and he did bring a guy named Tebow in. So, yeah, it's a weird feeling. I understand what you guys are feeling with Jimbo.
Yeah, that kind of harkens back to our very first episode. You and I talked about that. Now we're in episode 51. Yeah. So how about that? All right, that's a good question. I may throw that to our fans this week. We'll see. Probably the last one here, Lynn, and we'll kind of start to wrap up and get some business taken care of. Our recent episodes. Chris and I brought back our Fave 5 returning offensive starters and our Fave 5 returning defensive starters. What were your thoughts on our list, and did you want to add or kind of adjust to the list that we put out there?
Not much in terms of notes there. My only big thing is I agreed with Chris's statement regarding the quarterbacks under Mullen. Whoever that guy is definitely going to be the number one returner. And that's just from an outsider's eye. I know that the quarterback position has been something that UF has struggled with in the last couple of seasons, but I fully agree that under Mullen, that's your number one returner of importance. And then Brandon, you're going to judge me a little bit on this one, but I think Akers was ranked a little too high. I think he's still got a lot of growing to do and a lot of buy-in that he needs to give us under this Taggart era. Okay. And he was definitely a top 5, but I probably would have put him at 5. I'm part of a fantasy college league, and I drafted him last year, and he let me down and broke my heart so quickly that I can't put a lot of faith in him right now, but ask me again in a couple of weeks.
Okay.
He's a guy who has potential, but yeah, even Brandon, when we were making the list, you were kind of like, you were kind of frustrated with him. So to find someone even more frustrated with him is pretty funny.
Yeah. Well, I'm seeing so many people, I mean, and this is non-Florida State fans I'm hearing this from. They're like, he's our number one returner. I'm like, try again. I really don't think there's a lot of eyes on the program. They see that freshman season, and they don't see anything else. So, very interesting.
No, I think Terry is definitely at more value than Akers is in terms of returners on our offense. In terms of the defense, there were no real edits that I could give you guys, so kudos.
Okay.
All right.
Good for us.
Pass the test.
All right. Well, speaking of feedback on our top 5 returning starters on offense and defense, we did get a submission from Jarad. He's been on the show several times. Let's give a quick listen to see what he thought of our list, mostly for the Gators.
Hey, what's going on, Brandon and Chris? This is Jarad. Just listening to the show. I want to say great job. I'm so glad to hear you guys are back. Looking forward to the season, all the insights and all the takes as we get into it for that Week 0 matchup between my University of Florida Gators and the Miami Hurricanes. Listened to the top 5 list. Thought there was a lot of good stuff. Just wanted to drop in and give my own my top 5 most important offensive players to be returning for the University of Florida. Waste no time. Get into it. Number 5, that man, Van Jefferson, transferred from Ole Miss from Brentwood, Tennessee. Last year, 503 yards in the season, 14.4 yards per catch, and 6 touchdowns. He's the leader of the receiver corps by far and away. Great leader in the locker room. Keeps those guys up. Makes sure everybody's working hard. And just a really big cog in what the Gators do offensively. He can stretch the field. He can be a possession receiver. He can burn a DB on the outside. So a lot of talent coming through Van Jefferson. Number 4, Michael Pirine. Deuce switches number to 2. Gonna have a major year, I think, if the offensive line can hold up for him. Last year, coming in with 826 yards, which averaged 6.2 yards a carry, 7 touchdowns. Added another 170 yards and 13.1 yards per catch and a receiving touchdown. So LaMichael Pirine's probably the most versatile threat the Gators have had at running back. really, I mean, Percy wasn't a running back, but as far as being able to do it all, well, Michael Piron's probably the best running back they've had in 10 years. Elite vision, not much of a burner. He's not gonna break every run for a touchdown, but he's shown at the end of the year against Michigan and Florida State, he absolutely can break off a 50, 60-yard run if he needs to. Third most important returning player for the University of Florida Gators is the man under center, Felipe Franks. 2017, an abysmal year under Coach McElwain. 1,400 yards, 9 touchdowns, 8 interceptions. 1 year under Coach Mullen, 2,400 yards, 24 touchdowns against 6 interceptions, 350 yards rushing, and another 7 touchdowns rushing. Felipe Franks has had a year in the offense. He's the unquestioned leader, and he makes everything go. So I think most Gator fans are expecting a really big year from Franks, just from a leadership standpoint and a confidence standpoint. Early on in the gate, he came in real shaky in those first contests, but a lot of it was just getting acclimated to the offense. At the end of the year, lights out. I mean, you saw what he's able to do when he's playing with confidence. The number 2 most important player for the Florida Gators is Brett Heggie from Mount Dora, Florida. 6'4", 320-pound junior, is an interior offensive lineman. Most feel he's the best interior offensive lineman, and he would have been a starter last year, but he was dealing with injuries throughout the year. So Brett Heggie is the leader of the offensive line. He's a guy that everybody looks to, knows all the calls, even though he doesn't play center. But he's going to be a major part of what the Gators do going forward. He should bring a big positive to the run game. As good as the Gators were in interior in the run, Brett Heggie has a little more talent than what the Gators graduated. So we look for, at least that position to be solidified. Still a lot of questions on the offensive line, which leads me to the number 1 most important player for the Florida Gators this year coming into the 2019 season from Winter Garden, Florida, Stone Forsyth. 6'7", 330-pound junior tackle. So Forsyth's going to be protecting Felipe's blind side, and we all know what that's going to mean as the Gators get into the meat of that SEC schedule. And even against University of Miami, being able to take that blind side for Franks and being able to give him some time to get the ball off or to run those mesh reads that they love to do with Piron and Damian Pierce. So that is my personal 2019 5 most important returning players offensively for the University of Florida Gators. Love the show. Thank you guys so much. Glad you're back. Have a great one.
Okay, so that was Jarad's take. Chris, he put 2 offensive linemen at number 1 and number 2. What are your thoughts on that?
I said this to you before we started recording. I don't really know too much about the offensive line, like who's returning, because there's so many people that aren't. I know Hagee is, but that is the biggest question mark on the offensive side of the ball is our offensive line. Who's playing? I don't know who's playing. Who's starting? I'm not really sure. So I can't really fault him. I still like to stick with my assessment that the quarterback of a Dan Mullen offense is always going to be your number 1. Uh-huh. But interesting, not 1 but 2 guys on the offensive line. And I put Hagee as my honorable mention, but to bump him to 2 and Forsyth up there as well, that's interesting. I can't really fault them that they're both on the list. I don't know if I would put them 1 or 2, but that is definitely a huge question mark for us because we have all the tools surrounding the offensive line. If we get that going, it's going to be hard to stop. If not, it's going to be very easy to stop. So interesting that he put him up there.
Oh, good point. Well, Lynn and I, we were joking earlier. 1B, my pick was the entire offensive line for the returners. So we certainly understand the value of that for sure. Yeah,
absolutely.
All right, very good.
Congratulations on having an offensive line that you could put at the number 1 and 2 spot, with all of your heart.
Yeah, we've had our issues, but that's kind of settling down last couple of years, thankfully. But after Meyer and the Pounceys left, that was an issue. That definitely was. But we're kind of figuring that out now. The quarterback, though, we had no clue what we were doing.
Wow. Well, man, this was a great conversation. We got into some overall general college football knowledge, which is fantastic. I got to go to memory lane, back to some of my old traveling days. The question we asked you, Lynn, was so good. I think I want to propose that to our fans and our community this week. So let's hear some feedback from everybody. Here's the question, and we want to try and get these in before the season gets started. We know that Florida-Miami plays a Week 0 game. If you can try and get these into us in audio form, preferably by Friday, August 23rd, that would be great. If not, I can try and get them the next week after Florida-Miami play, but let's try to leave it before that. So the question is, who is your favorite Florida team, and how many regular season wins do you think they will have? All right, favorite Florida team, how many regular season wins do you think they'll have? So don't have to answer quite yet, but Lynn, did you want to stick with your 6-6, or do you want to kind of wait and submit that later?
I will go 7-5 and then reevaluate later. 6-6 is just to make sure that we get a good season. But I would feel comfortable saying 7-5 currently.
Okay.
Okay.
That's about what Vegas agrees on so far. What I see at Florida State, 7.5 is the over/under for win total. I saw the Gators are somewhere around the 9 mark, maybe 8.5. So
Yeah, I heard 9 and 10, but 9 is the safe one.
Around there. Okay. Excellent. Yeah. Well, Chris and I put a lot of work, a lot of research into the show, and we hope that it conveys to the audience. So that is what Chris and I will be working on until we resume our next episode. We're going to do our mega season preview. Is that the right adjective? You're the adjective guy around here. Mega season preview?
Yes.
Okay.
We'll go with enormous.
Enormous. Okay.
How about that one? The enormous little inside joke.
And
yeah.
we'll see how big that one gets. Last time it was quite lengthy, so we may split it up into multiple parts, but we'll maybe try and get it together, whatever we feel like is easiest. So that's what's on the horizon.
Oh, I had before we go, Lynn, I started to put you on the spot, and I meant to ask this earlier. As a season ticket holder, what is your favorite game or moment at Doak? I know I put you on the spot.
There are a lot. I will give you the first 2 that came to mind.
Okay.
3. The first 3 that came to mind.
The first 7. Why not?
No, I'll give you the first 3, 2 of which involve the Gators.
Oh, okay. Let's end this. Let's wrap it up right now. FloridaPodcast.com.
So
no, go ahead.
The first one was my first Florida State game ever. It was my freshman year of college at Doak Campbell Stadium. And it's fresh in my head because you talked about Percy Harvin in the players wearing the number 8 jerseys, the jersey wearers, if you will.
Yes.
And it was the game where we knocked him out. And he left the field on a stretcher. And I was in the end zone where that happened. And I was just like, what am I witnessing right now? Because it was one of the first big injuries that I had ever watched in real life. It was a Florida Gator game. We were in Doak Campbell Stadium. And I'm pretty sure we were also having a pretty rough season. So all of that combined, it was just mesmerizing to me. And I'm happy to say that he did recover from that. And I never wish ill harm on any opponent by any means. So kudos to Percy Harvin for that one.
That was in the pouring rain, too.
It was in the pouring rain.
Yeah.
The second one was when we finally overcame our losing streak to the Gators in the swamp. Or not in the swamp, in Doak Campbell Stadium. We had lost, I want to say at least 5 years to that point. I was in the student section, probably 5 rows from the field. We just beat the Gators for the first time in years. We carry around the Gator head on the field, and next thing I know, there's just this uproar to my left in another part of the student section, and somebody had physically ripped the bleachers, like the seating from Doak Campbell Stadium, and out of excitement, and they were just passing the bleachers around.
Yep.
So that was pretty crazy. Also, and then the last thought or moment was when we played Notre Dame for the first time after they got their ACC quote unquote contract for football, where
right.
they had, they have to play 3 teams in the ACC each season, whatever. That first game was at Doak Campbell Stadium. It was a night game, and they had like multiple offensive pass interferences. It came down to the wire on scoring. It was the Noles ended up winning, but it was like controversial play after controversial play. And I'm pretty sure if you went to South Bend, Indiana right now, Notre Dame fans would still be upset and say that the Irish were gypped. But that was just an incredible moment because the last 45 seconds of the game lasted almost this is an exaggeration, obviously, but it felt like an hour of play time because it was just one call after another. And to play them for the first time in, I want to say, a decade at that point, and the old rivalry that we had from the 90s with the Irish, and just this incredible display of talent that we had on the field that night was unbelievable.
Yeah, I remember, I want to say it was like David Robinson's like nephew played for Notre Dame, and he got, I think it was a pick play or something like that in the end zone. He caught a touchdown, but it was called back. I think if my memory.
Yeah, I think that was the
correct.
2014 season. That was Jameis' second year. Well, that's the game. That's the game I'm thinking
It's the
of.
same game. I think I remember. Yeah.
Yep.
That was a crazy one.
That was crazy. Lynn, great memories there. Chris, you and Jarad and I were actually at that 2010 Florida State Florida game together. The game she's talking about, they ripped up the bleachers.
Oh.
We had lost 6 times in a row, if I did the math right. 04 to 09.
Remember, yeah.
And that was 2010. And we
remember
finally
that
got
game.
over, and I remember after the game, understandably, you're like, I just want to get out of Tallahassee. I get it.
Yeah.
That's what I remember from that night. So, yeah.
Where's the exit? I want to go there quick.
Yeah, let's just leave. Understandably so. All right. Wow. Well, man, that was some great memories there, and thank you, Lynn, so much for coming on and giving us the season perspective, for being a fan of the show. We appreciate it all.
Oh,
Yeah, thank
anytime.
you.
Awesome. Well, to wrap up, Chris, let's remind the fans how they can give some feedback. Let them know, hey, how good was Lynn? Do we think she should replace Brandon? People want to give feedback on their list. Where should they send that feedback to?
Go to FloridaFocusPodcast.com, and that's the main central area. All of our outlets are there. And give us some feedback, answer the questions that we put out, and let us know if Lynn should replace Brandon. My vote is yes.
All right. Well, yes, thank you.
Did I say that out loud? Was that out loud?
Yeah, a little bit. I think you did. Yes, well, thank you so much for all the feedback and everything that's come in so far. We have a fun time bringing all of the college football world. You can hopefully tell we're passionate about it. So we told ourselves when we started this show we would do it for ourselves and didn't care if anyone listened, and sure enough, it happened anyway. So how about that? As Chris mentioned, the website's the best place. If you want to give us some feedback in the form of a review, that's good as well. We'd also appreciate that. But let us know if we can improve the show and how. But any final thoughts, Lynn or Chris, about today's episode before we sign off?
No, I'm just happy that she was here and gave the insight. And I learned a lot about the Seminoles that I didn't know before, so I appreciate you.
Chris, I know that we don't play the University of Florida this year, but if you happen to find yourself in Tallahassee on a home game Saturday, let me know. I've got an extra ticket with your name on it.
Oh, okay, fantastic. Already? That's odd, but okay. Good to know, though. Good to know.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you to everybody who gave us a listen. We appreciate your feedback and look forward to the season. This is Brandon saying go Noles.
Go Gators.
Go Noles.